Now, let's bring in MS Now reporter Nnamdi Egwuonwu live from Minneapolis, and our White House reporter Laura Barron-Lopez. Also with us, former FBI supervisor Rob D'Amico and former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance. Nnamdi, how are things there on the ground this morning?
It's been a tense morning. You know, we've been here outside of right on the street, actually, where Renee Good was shot a couple of days ago. And you know, for the last 2 days, protesters had essentially tried to make this street a sanctuary. They erected barricades on both sides of the street to cordon it off. There were vigils on display here, and police early this morning cleared the entire area. They removed that debris to ensure that the road remained accessible. Our understanding is there had been a couple instances where emergency crews had tried to pass through here, but because of those barricades, they weren't able to. But I think it's important to note that what the city left untouched was the vigil you see behind me, which has continued to grow as the day has continued today. We've seen more and more people trickle in to lay down a flower. We've seen people praying here, and it's all been fairly peaceful. But the group is starting to grow as frustration continues to mount over the shooting we saw a couple of days ago. Now, in my conversations, when I ask people, hey, what is frustrating you the most in this moment, I generally get three things. One, just the idea that out-of-state personnel are coming in and causing this sort of volatility in the city is frustrating for people. The rush to judgment we've seen from officials like J.D. Vance, like Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, from the president, also has frustrated people who feel that the video they're seeing just does not support the conclusion that some of those Republican officials are rushing towards. And there's also frustration over the attempt to sideline the state from this investigation, with several people I've spoken to telling me they have no faith that the FBI, especially as federal officials have already made these definitive statements, will carry out an impartial investigation. So those tensions continuing to mount. What we're expecting as the day continues, in addition to that press conference, is there's going to be another press conference at a local park that'll feature community leaders and teachers, notably teachers expected to speak at that event as well. Obviously, the day of that shooting, a couple hours later, we learned that ICE also went to a local high school to conduct an arrest that led to tense scenes and a brief clash between ICE agents and also some students and teachers. At least one educator was arrested. That's expected to be a big focus of that press conference later this morning, Anna.
Laura, as we mentioned, one of the big developments is that Minnesota investigators, state, local, were cut out of the investigation into this shooting. So now just the FBI is investigating. What's the reason? What are federal officials saying in regards to this?
Well, federal officials from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to Vice President J.D. Vance are claiming that they have full jurisdiction over this investigation, that there is no need for local and state to be involved in the investigation. And here's how they explained it over the last 2 days. Take a listen.
They have not been cut out. They don't have any jurisdiction in this investigation.
You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy's protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge.
So, Anna, just to fact check a few things there, which is that, yes, while it may be normal for the FBI and federal agencies to take over an investigation of this nature, usually sometimes they will cooperate and coordinate with state and local investigators. Also, federal officials do not have absolute immunity. Do they have very strong immunity protections? Yes, they do. Is it difficult to bring a prosecution against federal officials? Yes, but state and local authorities can prosecute federal officials if they believe they have violated state crime. So that is something that we are looking to see if the state will ultimately try to do. Of course, that may be complicated because of the fact that right now they don't have access to the evidence and the materials, Anna.
Rob, what are the implications of the FBI going it alone? And is there any legitimate reason for federal investigators to simply cut out local and state investigators?
We've always used the state and locals with the FBI. When first office in Miami, there's shootings down there. the state and locals investigated it, and we had counsel from the FBI because the supremacy clause, what they're talking about is if you're found in the line of duty, yes, the supremacy clause comes in. They can pull the court up. They can pull the case up into federal court and they can dismiss it. But if you're found not in the line of duty, if the shooting was unjustified and you're not in the line of duty, the FBI has allowed agents to be prosecuted in state court. It's tough. A friend of mine was from the hostage rescue team, was tried in state court. He was acquitted. And I think it gave more credibility, the fact that it was down in a state court, it went through the trial process, and he was acquitted by a state and local jury, I think really gave it credibility that, in fact, he wasn't guilty of what he is charged with. But they're already assuming that he's found in the line of duty by saying he has absolute authority. If he's found not justified in the use of deadly force, then that's when it goes to state. Again, the comments that are coming out are so this is not true. You can see the video and see the agent wasn't run over. Does he still have possibly a justification for use of deadly force? Yes, but the investigation has to find that out. And if the state and locals aren't involved in it, I think it just gives a worse perception that it's going to be covered up.